Hello, my name is Dr. Noreen Wark, and my presentation today is entitled Learners' Educational Paradigm Preferences for Emergent Technology Integration, a comparative analysis of two courses. This presentation provides a brief overview of the dissertation project before focusing on a comparative analysis between the two class settings explored in the dissertation study. I'll begin with an introduction. There are a few terms that are used frequently in this presentation. Technology is derived from two Greek words, techne and logos. There are countless definitions for the word, most associated solely with the Greek word techne. For the purpose of this project, though, technology is defined as tools, means, skills, crafts, or systems that are outward reflections of individual and societal values and motivations. The study also subscribes to Valienzo's definition of the term emergent technology, which is tools, concepts, innovations, and advancements utilized in diverse educational settings to serve varied education-related purposes. Educational paradigm is defined as the shared beliefs, theories, and practices, including research practices, associated with a particular educational group or school of thought. There are three approaches to learning also discussed in this presentation. Pedagogy is an approach to learning where the teacher controls the learning context, process, and task, and is associated with the behavioral paradigm. Androgyny is a learning approach typically used with adults. Learners may control the learning context, while the teacher usually controls the learning process and tasks, and this aligns most closely with the behavioral paradigm. Hudagogy is a learning approach in which the learner controls the learning context, process, and tasks, and it is associated with a learner-determined or perceptual learning paradigm. The problem addressed in the study was to determine what kind of mindset learners will need in order to thoughtfully and purposely integrate emerging technologies on an ongoing basis, given this fluxing world of dynamically evolving technologies and educative practices. The purpose of the dissertation study was to critically reflect online graduate level learners' perspectives on what key factors and ultimately what learning paradigm most empowers learners to integrate emergent technologies for learning on demand. Therefore, the primary research question asked was, what educational paradigm most empowers online graduate level learners to acquire higher levels of emergent technology integration for learning on demand? During the data analysis process, some significant differences between the two classes over the semester under study were noted, even though most course elements appeared to be very similar in both class settings. At the beginning of the term, most respondents in both classes assessed themselves as being at the early practice level with emergent technologies included in the study. By the end of the term, respondents in Course B reported a significant increase in their skill level with these technologies. Two possible explanations for the noted differences could be the respondents' understanding of the term emergent technology and the use of mindfulness teaching and learning strategies in Course B. Next is a brief review of relevant literature. The literature identifies two disparate epistemic stances on learning. Behavioralism subscribes to the notion that the source of knowledge is external and sense-based, whereas the perceptual epistemology argues that the source of knowledge is innate human perception. These opposing epistemic stances are manifested to varying degrees in the learning theories and approaches that have evolved from these notions, as illustrated here. In practice, though, the most prevalent difference is who has control over learning. After examining the theory of learning, the topic of natural learning was explored. According to the literature on natural learning, preschool children are instinctively curious, eager, dynamic, active learners. Their interests intrinsically motivate their desire to learn. Learning naturally occurs in any setting, is often social, and continues throughout life. And humans are intrinsically driven by the desire to achieve autonomy, mastery, purpose, and innovation. Recent discoveries in neurology indicate that innate individual perceptions are the source of knowledge. Genetics, psychophysiological state, and experiences alter perceptions. Perceptual learning marries simple or instrumental reasoning with transformational learning. Transformative learning is a dynamic blend of rational thought, involving logic and effective thinking, and creative intuition, leading to change in perception. After exploring what was known about natural learning, issues of power and control over learning were reviewed. The educational system in a behavioural paradigm is a top-down hierarchical dictatorship. The curriculum is abstract, fractured, lineal, one-size-fits-all, and determined by those in power. The institution and teacher control instructional time, pace, place, content, resources, delivery, and evaluation. Learning officially occurs in the formal schooling context, typically during the learner's younger years. In the perceptual learning system, the institution is a network democracy, emulating principles of autonomy, diversity, openness, interactivity, and responsibility. The curriculum is holistic, individualistic, and based upon a learner-determined individual educational plan. The learner controls their learning throughout life within their unique personal learning environments with the support of their personal learning networks. Through this learning process, the learner hones their capacity for transformative learning and leading. With the central tenet of education for all and the ability of emergent technologies to exponentially erode the parameters of space and time, distance education offers learners with the opportunity to realize control over their own learning. Nevertheless, recent research indicates that the emancipating role of distance education is now being threatened by some educators' desire to replicate face-to-face educational settings. When investigating possible reasons for the notable differences between respondents in the two classes, it was discovered that the instructor had employed mindfulness teaching and learning strategies in the second class. Briefly stated, mindfulness focuses upon the mind-body relationship, though such practices as meditation, deep listening, dance, breathing, reflection, and journaling. One goal of mindfulness practice is to center one's physical and mental awareness on the present moment, paying attention in a particular way, on purpose, in the present moment, and not judgmentally, according to Kabat-Zinn. Research indicates that mindfulness promotes attention, impulse control, self-awareness, compassion, and empathy. However, there's a paucity of studies on mindfulness in online educational settings. This leads us to the research methods and procedures used for this project. This study is presented from a critical pragmatic perspective. The term critical pragmatism was coined in 1988 by Deegan to describe the worldview of Jane Addams. It is a blend of critical theory, pragmatism, and reflective research traditions. And the goal of critical pragmatic educational research is to empower learners and increase equality in education. The study also employed a transformative mixed methods methodology. Because no frameworks, models, or taxonomies that included the integration of emergent technologies from within different educational paradigms could be found, a paradigm shift framework was developed for the study. This framework merges a paradigm shift model, illustrated as a Venn diagram, with an Omni-tech taxonomy, which is illustrated as a blue arrow over the model in this slide. This framework captures the learner's level emergent technology integration within pedagogical, anthropological, and hudagogical learning environments. Looking at the Venn diagram, the darkest, tallest letter in the PAH acronym is the most dominant approach to learning, while the smallest letter is the least common approach found in that learning environment. Briefly stated, the teacher determines what and how technology, knowledge, skills, and attitudes are acquired and practiced by the learning in a P environment. Assessment reflects the efficiency and effectiveness of the learner's progress. The learner engages with other learners, the instructor, and possibly other experts to facilitate the learner's growing competency with emerging technology integration for learning in the A environment. Learning How to use these technologies is no longer a major learning outcome. Technologies are simply means for facilitating discourse, critical reflection, and other higher-order thinking skills within the learner's growing learning community. In the H environment, the integration of technologies for learning is a perpetual, dynamic, reflexive process in which the learner determines, number 1, what is learned, number 2, how it's learned, number 3, why it is being learned, number 4, when and where the learning occurs, number 5, who is involved in the learning, number 6, how the learning can be adapted for use in novel situations, and number 7, what learning outcomes and consequences this technology integration may have on the learner, the environment, and collective humanity. Through this process, the learner hones their capacity for transformative learning and leading. It is this framework that binds the theoretical, conceptual, and substantive elements of the dissertation, including the research process and development of the data collection instruments used with study participants. There were 17 data collection sources. 12 volunteer students from 2 online Masters of Education and Distance Education courses during the spring 2017 term completed pre- and post-term questionnaires and mid- and post-term interviews. Each course instructor completed 1 interview. The 6th source was the University Public Course web pages, and the Researcher's Journal was the final source. And Vivo Pro 11 and SPSS version 23 software programs were used to analyze the data. A second coder was also employed. 1/4 of the student interviews were co-coded. 17% were initially coded in isolation, yielding intercoder reliability of 92.4% agreement and a kappa coefficient of 0.956, and intra-coder reliability of 93.6% and 0.985 kappa. After a brief overview of respondent demographics, the presentation moves on to comparing and discussing the findings between the 2 course settings. There were 34 respondents who could have participated in this study, potential respondents. 12 chose to respond, or 35.3% of the population participated in the study. 3/4 of the students involved in the study were female, 70% were male, and 8% chose not to respond to this question. In terms of geographics, 42.5% lived in large urban centers, which were centers with a population equal to or above 500,000 people. 3/4 of the students had completed over half of the MEd-DE program by the time they participated in this study. And for most of the participants, this was the first technical course that they had taken in the program. On average, all respondents reported being at the early practice level with emergent technologies when the term began. However, post-term levels indicated that those who most preferred the behavioural paradigm experienced a slight drop in the practice level. Those who preferred the shifting paradigm had a slight to moderate increase in the practice level, and those who identified with the perceptual paradigm reported a significant increase to the early competency level by the end of the term. And here is a list of the emergent technologies that were included in this study. A comparative analysis between the 2 courses, drawn from the instructor interviews and data from the public course web pages, indicated that on average, elements within both instructors' realm of control align most closely with a merged andragogical, hudagogical approach to teaching and learning, whereas the more global course elements controlled by the faculty and institution were strictly pedagogical in nature. Thus, it was concluded that both course environments were very similar. Looking at this chart on Course A respondents' early and post-term learning environment preferences, you can see that there was a fairly even split between the preferences for the pedagogical, andragogical, and hudagogical environments. By the end of the term, pedagogical preferences had increased slightly, andragogical preferences had increased a bit more, and hudagogical preferences had decreased moderately. Now looking at Course B results, you can see that these respondents' early term preferences were also almost evenly divided between the three learning environments. However, by the end of the term, you will notice a dramatic increase in preferences for a hudagogical environment and a similar decrease in the preferences for a pedagogical environment. The term emergent technology seemed to give some students, some respondents, some difficulty. Both courses were emergent technology courses. Course B focused specifically upon mobile learning. 41% of Course A respondents set a personal emergent technology integration goal, while 80% of Course B respondents did so during the term under study. Two possible explanations for the differences between the courses were understanding of the term emergent technology. Even though all research instruments included Valienzo's broad definition of emergent technology, collected data indicated that most respondents viewed emergent technologies only as tools. Most respondents viewed emergent technologies as tools. For example, one respondent in Course A said, "The technology is a tool or medium I present in my online classroom." Another respondent in Course B said, "My goal at the beginning of this course was to be more at ease with mobile technology. I recently bought a tablet and wanted to be more efficient with the tool." One respondent talked about his confusion with the term emergent technology. This respondent said, "I find it confusing. When I think about the phrase emergent technology, I immediately go to physical tools. Then suddenly I have to backtrack and consider something like ideation or conceptual tools." Some respondents in Course B noted an evolution in their understanding of emergent technology as the term progressed. For example, one respondent said, "So my initial thought going into the class was that my interest in instructional design and mobile learning is just a design on a mobile device. But then coming out of class, I realized that was a little bit different, more in depth. Mobile technology is a whole other world, a whole other entity." Course A presented emergent technologies within online learning contexts. Course B presented a systematic and conceptual notion of mobile learning, employed the use of mobile devices and apps in the course. So pedagogical respondents didn't set goals for the term. For example, in Course A, one pedagogical student said, "This isn't a technology course." Another Course A pedagogical respondent said, "I was actually a little perplexed by that question, just because it's an online teaching and learning course about online teaching and learning, but it's not really a course specifically about technology. So it wouldn't be a course where I would set that type of goal because I'm not going to learn about new technologies in it." On the other hand, hudagogical respondents did choose to set personal emergent technology goals for the term. For example, in Course A, one hudagogical respondent said, "I'm not sure if I had stated that or not on the questionnaire, but one of the goals that I had was actually using mobile technology." Another student in Course B said, "I wanted to get practical experience with mobile technology so I'd actually use it in my practice." Some of the mindfulness teaching and learning practices that the Course B instructor mentioned during an interview some months after the study term was over included connecting with students on a regular basis, the use of apps for connecting with the class, staying organized, remaining current, and merging life events, goals, and activities with course events and outcomes. The synchronous sessions in the course began with meditation and being present in the present moment. There was also identifying, discussion, revisiting of personally meaningful reasons for taking the course, as well as mindful listening. The course instructor and I are currently engaged in further research on mindfulness teaching and learning in the online learning environment. As part of this action research project, data has already been collected from some respondents enrolled in Course B during the following semester. Some preliminary findings reported by this new group of respondents include becoming cognizant of personal goals. Mindfulness strategies help them to monitor, assess, and update goals. The apps recommended by the instructor help respondents to maintain focus, organize their life, and reduce stress. And respondents also felt that mindfulness strategies used in the course help them to gain control over their own learning and other life aspects. And now some conclusions. In comparing Course A to Course B, it was noted that the locus of control was almost identical in both settings. Although both courses were about using conceptual and systematic emergent technologies for online learning, only Course B included the use of mobile, hard, and software tools. There was a nearly equal blend of pedagogical, andragogical, and hudagogical preferences in both courses when the term began. However, by the end of the term, Course A respondents indicated a slightly more preference for pedagogical and andragogical environments, whereas Course B respondents reported significantly more preference for hudagogical and less for pedagogical environments. Possible explanations for the results include respondent understanding of the term emergent technology, coupled with the use of tools in Course B, and mindfulness strategies in Course B. Some suggestions for future research include employing new strategies for helping respondents understand the broader definition of the term emergent technology, and continued exploration of the relationship between learning paradigms, learning approaches, and mindfulness teaching and learning strategies in online learning environments. Thank you. I have 2 pages of references in relation to this presentation. Here's the first page, and here is the second page. Again, thank you for your time.